What's our third email today?
All right, last one is from Jillian Garth, wandering around the interwebs and saw that they're projecting Captain Marvel to hit around 100 million opening weekend. Okay, that's cool, but is that good or bad? If Captain Marvel does hit 100 million opening weekend, do you think Marvel should be happy or sad with that? Thank you very much.
Yeah, so we've been talking a lot about Captain Marvel, and I remember there was an early report a while ago kind of saying that Captain Marvel could open to 140 million. And I said, no, no. And Robert and I were talking, my guess was around 90. I was guessing around 90. Now, the new official tracking has come out from the industry, and they're tracking right now that they're saying anywhere between 90 and like 120 million, but they're kind of targeting $100 million for an opening weekend for Captain Marvel. So is that good or is that bad? Well, let's put it into perspective, okay? Let's look at all the other comic book superhero movies that have come out introducing us to a new superhero, okay? So this wouldn't include Black Panther because Black Panther had a big role in Captain America Civil War. That won't include Wonder Woman because Wonder Woman was already introduced on the big screen in Batman versus Superman. And, Spider-Man, even the new Spider-Man, he was introduced very flashily in Captain America Civil War as well. But let's look at all the opening weekends for origin superhero movies that this was actually their first appearance, okay? So we're looking at this. The number one box office opening weekend film for a intro solo superhero movie is Deadpool that made 132 million on its opening weekend. The next was the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man that made $114 million. Now, if Captain Marvel does and can manage to make $100 million on its opening weekend, it would make it the third largest opening weekend for an intro solo superhero movie in history. It would be just ahead of the first Iron Man film, but also it would notably and by a significant margin mean it would be opening over Ant-Man, which opened at $57 million, the first Captain America, the first Avenger film at $65 million, the original Thor movie, one of my favorite comic book movies of all time, that opened at $65 million, and over and on top of Doctor Strange with Benedict Cumberbatch, that opened at $85 million. So, in the question of if Captain Marvel, which has never been on screen before, ever, wasn't introduced in any other films, if Captain Marvel can open to $100 million, is that good or bad? Well, I would simply say in context, that's pretty damn good. If there's only two other original superhero films ever to open at more than that, that's not bad. If you beat out Doctor Strange by $15 million, that's not bad. If you're beating out Thor and the first Captain America, that's not bad. Now, the industry has grown and the genre has grown, but I'm thinking if it comes in at $100 million, I was guessing 90 before. I was guessing 90. And hey, maybe those who are more optimistic, like Robert Meyer Burnett, like Rob is more optimistic, but he's thinking this thing's going to come in about 130 and 140. And if it does, fantastic. That's great. But in the question of would 100 million be good? Hey, I think if you look at it in context, you have to spin it pretty hard to not acknowledge that it's pretty good. You'd have to put a pretty serious, biased spin on it to not acknowledge that a $100 million opening for this would be pretty damn good. And but then the question becomes, how does it do long term? What kind of legs does the movie have? Okay, great, it makes $100 million opening weekend. Does it then go on to make $800 million? Or does it go on to make $400 million? I mean, those are the bigger, more important questions that we really can't answer until we actually get a look at the film and see how good it is. Because maybe it's great, maybe it's horrible, who knows? But if it does come in at 100, I think that's pretty good. Where's your anticipation level right now, Ashley, for a movie, say, like Captain Marvel? Are you looking forward to this one?
Oh yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. But I was gonna, I'm wondering where the draw for the average viewer is. Like, is it Brie Larson? Is it their marketing and their trailers? Is it the story? Like, do they just love Captain Marvel? Like, why is it going to be above, say, Thor? I wonder. But
I think the reason it's going to come in above Thor, I think, look, why will it come in above and why won't it do better are two different questions. Mm-hmm. Why it'll come in above Thor and things like that is because I think the trust in the MCU has grown over the years, right? So I think, and there was a time when the comic book movie was not the undisputed most dominant genre in Hollywood. It is now. So the excitement for these movies has grown. Doesn't mean they're all going to be automatic big hits, but it's grown. So, and I think that is Marvel. The fact that it's going to be coming right before Avengers Endgame, I think they're going to have a significant tie into Avengers Endgame in it. So there's all that. Why not better then? Then why won't it do even better than 100 million? Well, for a couple of reasons. Same thing is like Doctor Strange. We never had Doctor Strange in any MCU movie before. We had never met him. The audiences were not introduced to him. He just came in cold on his own movie, made 85 million, and that was great.
Pretty good.
A character like Black Panther got an amazing kick-ass intro in Civil War, to the point now that when the movie was coming out, we were like, oh, I can't wait to see this guy in his own movie. Aquaman, which also only opened to under $70 million on its opening weekend, went on to make over $1 billion. Aquaman had an intro in Justice League. Wonder Woman had a significant intro and was already introduced to the audience in Batman versus Superman. So there's a lot of people who have never even heard, in the general movie-going audience, there's a lot of people who've never even heard of Captain Marvel. Never even heard of her. You don't, unlike Spider-Man Homecoming, which they brought Tony Stark and Iron Man into that movie to help propel it a little bit, we've got more of a secondary character in Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury. So that's why I think it will do as well as it can do, but it won't do much better. And then again, the real question then becomes, how does it do once it opens and people see the quality of it? And that ultimately is going to be the biggest question that we need to address.
I think a lot of my friends get confused. They're like, "Oh, is Captain Marvel, like, is she the queen of Marvel Universe?" And then others are like, "Captain America, is she like with Captain America?" Like they don't quite get her yet.
And then there's still a lot of people. There are people who have a general basic knowledge of comic books. Wait a minute. Isn't Captain Marvel Shazam? Because for decades and decades and decades and decades, Shazam's name was actually Captain Marvel. Shazam was just the word that he would say to turn from Billy Batson into Captain Marvel, but the character's name was actually Captain Marvel. So we had two Captain Marvels for a while. You had Captain Marvel in the DC universe, you had a Captain Marvel in the Marvel universe. Now Shazam is just known as Shazam, and there's a lot of stuff here that can cause the average film goer a little bit of confusion, and it's going to be interesting to see. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this all kind of pans out. All right, guys, with all that down, we like to take